This is a pretty exciting week for cargo defense. I've been working on getting the outer gameplay loop together, and I set some pretty ambitious goals for my first build that I'll be sharing in quite a while, and actually met all of those goals. So let's take a tour of what's new. I started off the week continuing my UI work. Aside from some obvious visual changes, a lot more of it is functional now. For instance, you can hire and dismiss crew, you can build walls and doors, you can build these other things too, but they're not really entirely implemented yet. And you can sell stuff, although right now I haven't implemented money transactions either, so this credit balance is still remaining the same. The equipment screen is probably the more interesting part, because you can now drag and drop things directly onto crew members to equip them, as well as drag things out or drag into specific slots. I put a lot of effort into this sort of preview you get as you're dragging and dropping. You might notice it changes the text to say you can drop here to buy and equip, and then if you can't fit anything more in the inventory, it highlights that in red, telling you that you can't carry it, and it disables dropping. If you've never built a UI like this before, you might be surprised just how many special cases and little things like this there are to consider, but I think it's worth putting the time in to really polish it and make the experience nicer. So you might notice there's an additional tab now because I've split the equipment and market screens. It's largely so I could shrink everything down to make this work in resolutions as low as 1280 by 720. And perhaps the biggest change this week is that you can now resize the window, and the UI will adapt to any resolution and aspect ratio as long as it's at least 1280 by 720. Now currently I'm not actually resizing individual parts of the UI to take advantage of the extra space, but I'm not sure I want to, because it's nice to be able to give yourself more area to see the ship behind the UI. And for now, I'll just snap this back to 1080p. Now the other big change this week is what happens when you move to another system, and before I do that, I'm going to put my crew behind this door for safety. Let's travel and see what happens. I've set up a very basic test encounter where you can see the enemy will actually board my ship and try to attack. Now obviously this white line is just a placeholder graphic, but this is the zip line that they'll use to board your ship. And unfortunately I've hit a bug where the AI has gotten stuck, so I'm going to cut this video and try again. Alright, this isn't quite where I left off, but you get the idea. The enemy will board your ship, attack, and if you don't defend yourself, they will kill all your units and you'll get a game over. I mentioned before, the AI sometimes gets into a state where it doesn't find anything to do, and my solution to that for now is to let objects mark themselves as strategic targets, and then only if the AI finds nothing else to do, it'll move toward the most valuable target. If you noticed a new item in the build list, that's because I temporarily added the breacher that the enemies use to make the zipline to your ship, so that I could test operating it with my own crew. It's always easier to test a new mechanic with something you control directly rather than through the AI. And unsurprisingly, there were a lot of bugs at first with moving objects between ships. I'm also not quite sure yet what I'm going to do with these camera transitions, because they're a bit jarring as is. I might as well also show you a peek at the manifest file where I define objects of the game. Modders would create additional manifest files to add new content. As you can see, it's all human readable and pretty simple to edit. So obviously there's still a lot of work to do. I'm focusing now on just trying to get the basic mechanics of the outer gameplay loop in place so that you can play through it and just kind of test everything. And then after that, I'm going to be working on universe simulation and content. The universe simulation is going to be driving a lot of the things that are currently missing, and replacing a lot of hard-coded stuff with more dynamic things. So this build is still pretty rough and obviously missing a lot, but it's starting to take shape, and you can start to finally visualize the path to actually finishing this game. So I'm pretty excited. And I guess that's pretty much all I have to talk about this week, but it's really nice to be making rapid progress again. As always, it really helps if you hit the like button, spread the word, and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, thanks for watching.